Well, I thought a really complete game for us today. I had some concerns, obviously, coming off of a bye week. At just 11 o'clock start, a lot of things going on this week with homecoming, just little distractions, changing routines and some of the things that we have to do, which and understand that. But, for a coach, those are the things that kind of ring in your head about, okay, now we got to come out here, we got to play well, we got to start fast. You got a team that's coming in here that's played really well all year, manages the game, is going to do some things that I thought were going to put us in a tough situation, limiting possessions and stuff like that. But came out the first half, played really well. Defensively played exceptional. And obviously the pick six right there before half, I think, is the difference in the ball game. I mean, they were playing right into their hands for what they wanted. The last 4 minutes of the first half, first 4 minutes of the second half, a very well-oiled program and team, and knows what they can do. And they kind of had it in their, in their mold right there. And then Rico comes up with not only a huge pick, great play, but then he takes it to the house with 4 seconds left to go in the half. And I think that there's no doubt. I mean, there's some things that happened in the second half, but I mean, there's no doubt that's the difference in the ball game.
Luke, after the Purdue game, you joked that you might have to work on Ricardo Hullman's return skills. I presume you liked what you saw today.
Did I say that? I don't recall. Actually, I forgot to bring him up there in front of the team as big a play as we've had all year. He showed the skills today. That's not easy, obviously, going 95. Not only to make the play when you're in that situation, that sometimes you start thinking about running too soon, and the most important thing to do is to, make the play initially, and then to be able to close it out and take it the distance is exceptional.
Luke, one more for you on Ricardo. What has he shown you since you got here that has allowed him to establish himself as someone earning as many snaps?
Well, I think I said it after spring, and maybe even in the midst of fall camp, that if you ask me who the most consistent person I think on the team has been, I would say Rico. And I didn't know that I had seen some of those flash plays. Obviously, in the spring game, I think he had 3 picks. But through spring ball until that day, I don't know that I'd seen a ton of big plays, maybe picks and things. A lot of times the field corner doesn't have as much action at times. But then after the spring game, he just, I started to recognize how consistent he does things. And when the opportunities are there, obviously he made them then. And, it's same way in fall camp. And, he is very consistent at what he does. He's a smart football player, and he's playing at a high level for us.
Luke, when your offense has kind of a choppy day, some good, some bad, how do you see a guy like Tanner Mordecai's poise come through? Because that's something you talk about with him a lot.
It's not only poise, it's passion, it's fire. I mean, there's no doubt. You try to limit him from running the ball and putting himself in those situations, but when he does, you see where the passion, you see the fire, you see what, I told these guys, you'll find out more each week about, our team and each other, about the passion they have for the team and to play the game. And that's usually from your effort and your attitude, right? Not just making plays, but guys' effort and attitude when they watch him play. And that's Tanner. I mean, he's a fiery guy. He's got great emotions, but yet he handles it in the best way possible.
Luke, when we talked to your guys defenders during the week, they said they were excited to face Rutgers because of the running game. Do you think your front, whether it's the linemen or backers, control the line of scrimmage, especially early when Rutgers wanted to set the tone?
I do think so. You start with a week of being loading it and loading it and loading it, and after probably the first quarter and a half, I don't know that we had to be all the way down in some of those things. Obviously, we gave up some throws, but you had a good idea. If we were going to win this football game, we had to control the line of scrimmage. We had to win the rushing battle more than anything else.
Just what you saw from Braylon today and the way he responded after that fumble early on.
Well, I was looking for him. I wanted to make sure we had him right back in there. He knows, we'll ride with him. And obviously he's not happy. He's disappointed. I'm sure that he put the ball on the ground. But he still is the guy we're going to ride with. And I wanted to get him right back in there as best we possibly can. He was over getting taped. And we did get him back in. But, those kind of things happen. Again, we're not condoning it. I mean, we got to take care of it. But, I think the confidence level that he has, and he didn't bat an eye, kind of like we always talk about with Tanner, it's easier to see sometimes in the quarterback because the spotlight's always on him. But I thought he bounced back really well and it did not linger at one bit, not just in the way he played, but even you could tell in his face and his emotions.
Luke, how does Tanner's ability to escape some of that pressure, to gain positive yardage, change the math for you and allow you to do some different things on offense?
Well, it allows you to continue drives. It really puts, I don't say fear, but it puts a different element into defensively what you have to do. I think they got later in the game, and especially the second half, obviously they had to become more aggressive. So I think we gave up a couple sacks, maybe a smaller one, 1 yard or 2 yard where he's kind of pushing up in the pocket. I don't know that that's, if they had their druthers, that's the way they would have played it. They would have liked to have, be able to probably get there with 4. But his ability to not only extend plays, some quarterbacks, extend plays to throw the football. Some quarterbacks, their eyes go right down and they go to running. I think what Tanner does so well is he does it both. He keeps his eyes down the field, but yet then he feels space, and when he does take off, he can scoot, and he's got that aggressive nature. So I think he's the toughest kind to defend. Believe me, I know, because we played against him the last couple of years.
Luke, you mentioned Braylon Allen, but this is the first extended duty for Acre Jackson. Would you had hoped to have him for a starting point for the rest of the year?
I think we got what I would have expected, and I don't know that I said that walking in the door here. I mean, when we walked in the door, we're trying to figure out what position he was going to be, right? Is he going to be a fullback? Is he going to be a tight end? Is he going to be a tailback? I mean, he's done nothing but continue to grow and impress us. And I kind of was hoping and believing that at some point in time his opportunities were going to come up. Not that we wanted to have them the way they've happened, but I think all of us had a lot of confidence in his ability to not just be a backup guy or be a sub guy, but to be a guy that could go in there and carry the load.
Luke, going back to Rico's play, you guys watch so much film. I'm curious, is that had Rutgers done something like that before? Is that a matter of preparation or a reaction or a little bit of both?
Well, it's both. It is a little bit of preparation. Obviously, I think last week they scored a touchdown on probably a very similar route. I think it was 4th and 4. I think it was maybe the first touchdown of the game for him. But it's also a really, really good play, meaning that these guys are reading some of that and their ability to be able to pass some things off down there. And sometimes it happens, and sometimes the guy's just there and the ball gets batted down, and then there's times when you have an opportunity to actually put your hands on it and secure it. And he did. He not only did that, he obviously closed the deal. And that's big because I think later in the game, I think we had a couple times where we had our hands on balls, touches, tips, and we didn't come down with them. But it seems ever since maybe the second game, I think Rico's, if the ball has been somewhere around his hand, he's come down with it.
I'll say, Luke, with Will Pauling, I know he came over from Cincinnati too. It just with how he's catching the ball and becoming kind of a go-to type of receiver within this offense. Are you seeing him emerge how you thought he would when he decided to come to
Yeah,
transfer?
I thought Will was a perfect fit in everything here. Just the type of kid he is, his work ethic, and obviously his ability. But I think that even is probably one of 3 that I thought that this was a great and perfect fit. Now, how guys progress, how guys become, what they become as the offense evolves. You're never exactly sure, but he's done nothing but continue to impress everybody, work his butt off. I mean, you saw him more out there on the special teams today as well, and almost had a block punt. And he's just a guy that's continued to come to us and say he wants to do more. And so they roll time on on offense. Him and Skyler a lot. And he just wants other ways to try to find to get on the field and to help us win football games. And so we actually used him a bit more. We used him on the punt more today, and we used him on the punt block today. He's a guy that's a ball player.
Hey, Luke, I was curious about running back Kyle Monungai. He entered as, I think he was top 3 in the Big Ten in yards, but he only had 16 today, like 2 yards per carry.
Who's that?
Kyle Monungai, the running back for Rutgers. I was just curious what the key was to stopping him, how you guys were able to do so well.
It starts up front. I thought that, it was a focus for us. So it wasn't like, it was just something that happened. It was, we knew coming in here that if we didn't win the rushing battle, it was going to not be a great thing for us. And so the whole emphasis was winning the rushing battle. And that means some different things at times. It doesn't just mean the yards. but it means the ability to take people out of what they want to do. It didn't mean that we had to hand the ball off 50 times and make sure we were ahead of them in the rushing game. But it had a lot to do with our ability to stop the run, our ability to establish the line of scrimmage. And I thought the guys up front did a great job from the opening snap to the end. Obviously, the second half, I think they had to change a little bit being down. Probably threw the ball a little bit more than they wanted to. But nonetheless, it was because of I think the guys up front.
Luke, early in the week, you said you thought Jay Grenfell might be ready.
Yeah.
Was there any consideration to getting him a little bit of work? And I asked this in part because Tanner has talked about his snaps, and he said he knows he has to be much better than they are.
I don't know if there was a lot of talk there at the end. Had we, not maybe turned the ball over, there would have been a greater opportunity to, maybe get some of those guys, some more reps. But no, Jake is getting much closer. We play 6 linemen, obviously, with Trey and those guys rolling in there. We don't do that at the center position. This would have been the first week that Jake, we would have said he has legitimately practiced the whole week and ready to roll. And I think we'll continue to have him as a very viable option as we move forward.
We saw Riley Nowakowski get in toward the end of the game. Obviously, he's a guy that's been banged up too. What kind of thing what do you think he adds to the offense and gives that tight end group that maybe you were missing before?
Well, it's some depth. I think some versatility. I think he's a guy that is a true hybrid. He can, is a little bit more natural out in space, but he also is a tough physical guy that can play in the box. And it was great to see him. He was back this week in particular, but we weren't really, probably saying he was going to be a guy that we were, going to throw in there for a bunch of snaps. But if we would have needed him, obviously he was ready to go, and he practiced most of the week. But I think just continuing next week and the following, he's going to be a guy that's going to see a lot more action. We were fortunate to not have to use him much today, but from here on out, he'll see a lot more.